Well, I was fortunate to be among Charlie's first crew. I think our freshman year was Charlie's first year in the program at Roadhouse. Other than being accosted during freshman week to attend an indoctrination meeting into the cult, my first real recollection of Charlie was the beginning of my sophomore year. Well, that was a very effective way for many of us to be drawn to the river. And it really showed three things about Charlie. That he was tough, he was smart, and he had esprit de corps. Because he's smart because it's a very effective way to get an oarsman out of bed. Two, it's a very smart way, and it shows a certain camaraderie. At the beginning of our sophomore year, I think Charlie felt the program was in need of a little bit of a turnaround. So he held the first and only squad-wide meeting that I remember taking place out of the boathouse. And we assembled in either the captain's dorm room or the Winford House junior common room. And I think his aim was to instill confidence in us. And one thing I most remember about that meeting was his telling us that we ought to have confidence, we should have confidence, that after all we were admitted to the most competitive institution in the country. And we ought to take that confidence out onto the river with us. And I think we very much did. Now, Charlie started coaching, as he mentioned, in the days of slaughtering mascots, wooden shells, wooden oars. The oars were symmetric. The ergometers were literally bike wheels. We were timed with the coxswain's watch, and the coxswain would have to run around from erg to erg to try to mark the time. We didn't really videotape the cruise, so I think Charlie was one of the innovators in analyzing film. And from that first meeting, it was Charlie's toughness that made the biggest impression on me initially. He was still training. In fact, he wasn't that much older than us, but he was still a national team oarsman. And he worked out with us quite a bit. And he was never so impressive as when he competed in the crash bees. And his finishing time was many seconds beyond what he had ever achieved in training, and it was then that we realized how competitive he was. It was also then when I realized how smart he was, because I don't know how many of you are familiar with the butt rule, but he managed to flick the flywheel with a minute left. And I think he was on track for a terrific time nonetheless. But it was quite ingenious for Charlie to know that that would be an effective strategy. And again, it was his toughness, and his legend grew from the crash bees. He fought off a group of would-be muggers on the Wings Footbridge by apparently attacking them with his bicycle. I was reminded by so many stories by my fellow teammates. But it was really his intelligence that began to make an impression on us. He was smart enough and foresighted enough. You heard tonight about the number of his oarsmen that competed for their countries, the U.S. and Canada and otherwise. He had invited or recruited two of our teammates to get invited to the selection camp, the national team selection camp, that first summer. And when Big Sam Shuffler came back in the fall with stories of the World Championships, it really changed the tone for our program from there on out. And Charlie began what is his long record of innovative coaching techniques, HYPs, which was one of the most memorable, the most memorable race in my rowing history. We were down at the 500, and Charlie's launch was awfully close to our shell. And you know the stillness you hear when you're racing? In addition was a pounding on hands on metal or boot on metal. And it was his presence along with a coxswain that was in our alumni coxswain that was in the boat at the time. And somehow we overheard, they're gonna win. And this is when we were several seats down at the 500. Harvard hadn't won that race in many years. And it was Charlie's first victory in Princeton, followed up by his second consecutive victory at sprints. In addition to that pit stop in Princeton, in preparation for our fortunate visit to Henley, which many people in this room were responsible for and continue to be responsible for sending the crews on international trips, he got us invited for the first time to Red Top. And Harry was very accommodating. We got to sleep on the floor of the boat bays. And this, of course, was for a couple of days of scrimmages against his boats. And I guess we were on the boat bay and right near the water, and there's a rumor that the rock over on the river there may have had an H-150 painted underneath it for a few minutes in time. And also the egg supply at Red Top was exhausted that year because the painting party was met by an aerial bombardment of eggs by the much larger oarsmen that were awoken by this excursion. Charlie's toughness, intelligence, and esprit de corps was very much responsible for a lot of the victory we had then and a lot of the victories that he's brought to the program since then. I think, James, you're going to speak, and I have some photographs to show. These were taken before iPhone cameras and YouTube, so I think we're lucky we have some recollections. I thought Charlie's present hairdo was natural, but after hearing about Tom Brady, his advice for Tom Brady, clearly this would be his natural hairdo. And as I mentioned, he wasn't that much older than us at the time he started coaching, and that's a young Charlie Butt. And if his coaching techniques sound innovative, you have to remember, after all, who he's coaching. A bunch of guys that don't eat, that think it's normal to wear ski caps on the beach in California. Guys that dress weirdly. Competing against guys who dress even weirder. Who do weird things. That's over at the Garf side in Henley. Who do weird things even on our shores. Who make weird poses. Who wear weird hats. Drink out of weird objects. It's a San Diego Crew Classic Challenge Cup. Who have ambitions beyond their means. And as I mentioned, we were invited to Red Top, and there's some evidence of it. The first thing that happens when you go to Red Top, you should get fresh new sun hats, which are very effective. And there may be a can of spray paint in this guy's pockets, I'm not sure. And some of it is Charlie's techniques, win medals, win trophies, and there are many oarsmen with many memories of those trophies, and many have been lucky enough to have Charlie set their shells out on the river. We got to have drinks with the late great Andy Sudduth over in Henley as a result of Charlie's coaching, and these are some more shots on one of our Henley trips. And I think it was clear back then that Charlie was going to be a family man, because I think we spied how it is he got his mood elevated. We certainly do when someone special is in town. So again, thank you, Charlie, for your 25 years, and we know this is only the start to your next 25 years.